think we're ready. Oh, we're just waiting for some stragglers coming in, shall we? Shall we give them a moment? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll just need to leave those two because yeah, that one's okay. It's just because the camera can't see the chairs if people sit there. I just wanted to keep them empty. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this last session. A very funny thing, in my business. As you know, I publish a magazine, and I often go along and see people and interview them and talk about their businesses and what they're doing and things. And they always say that there's a cliche that they always say, and they always say that their greatest asset is their staff, which I think that's great. I mean, of course it is. I mean, it rather goes without saying that their greatest asset is their staff. And then I'll go back to my office and I'll send them a message and I'll say, could you send me some photographs, please, to go with your story? And they'll send me a picture of a truck. Now, is it me, or has somebody misunderstood something? The greatest asset is their staff, is the people. The business is the people. It's not the trucks and the warehouses and so on. But good people are really hard to find, particularly nowadays. Come and join us, please. Come and sit down. Don't be shy. Oh, it's you. You're not shy. No. Hello, John. Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Oh, no, you're not. Yeah, and getting good people is really hard. And of course, nowadays, it seems that keeping them, once you've got them, could even be harder. And so this session is all about that. It's all about how to get the right people for your business, and once you've got them, how to hang on to them. And later on, we're going to be talking about training. We're also going to be talking about acquisition, about getting new people. But before we do that, just to give us a bit of an overview of the whole topic and a few of his own ideas, please welcome up to the stage the what are you? The Director General of the BAR is Ian Studd.
He doesn't disappoint, does he? Right, good afternoon. So for those who don't know me, Ian Studd, Director General of the BAR. I've been around this industry now for 51 years, would you believe? So I think I can claim that I'm a keeper. But as Steve says, the industry is facing some unprecedented challenges in terms of our recruitment and retention strategies. And I just want to touch on some of the more sort of generic aspects of that by way of an introduction, if I can. And Caroline and Andy will go into more details around some of the strategies of recruiting, retaining and supporting staff. Okay, so we've done that bit, move on. So where are we at now? As an industry, and remember please, I've been around this an awful long time, but some of the stuff that we talk about now is no different to where we were in the 70s and 80s. So we haven't really evolved. And when we're talking about our businesses and what we do, we talk about ourselves as being a trade, as being professionals, as being skilled. But the reality of the marketplace is often cheap, cheerful, unregulated, uncontrolled. We're an ageing population, there's no denying that. When you look at the demographic of most businesses in the sector and you look at their employment range, we are all getting a bit older, and that investment in the next generation is fundamentally important. And if there's one thing, sorry, just to BARify things for a minute, if there's one thing I'm really, really proud of, it's where we're at with our Young Movers group. It's growing such a momentum, and there's such a a talented bunch of individuals. It's really encouraging to see. But generically speaking, we're an ageing population. We live in a world where we're constantly challenged on price, and I'll get on my soapbox about that if anybody cares to ask me, because what we do is value, it's not price. But if we're not creating that differentiation between ourselves as professional movers and that unregulated sector, then the only thing the consumer's got to make a decision on is the number on the bottom of the piece of paper, and that is just ridiculous. Okay, we've got skill gaps. We've lost so many drivers, for example, over the last year or two, partly because of COVID, partly because of regulation that now exists in the industry which didn't, and we're finding it increasingly difficult to fill those skill gaps. And then we've also got a perception of value, and again, I think we have a responsibility to properly describe where that value proposition lies and not let the consumer make their own mind up about that, because if they do, they will naturally default to the number. So we need to talk about our industry, we need to talk about all the great things that we do, we need to talk about all the great things that our people are, as Steve said a moment ago, because they are our best asset, they are our very best asset. So let's just take those thoughts, if we can, about being a trade and being skilled and all of that. So just a few definitions and thoughts. So what is a profession? It's an occupation or a career that requires a considerable amount of training and very specialist study. So if we're a professional, if we're a profession, we need to employ professionals. So what's a professional? They are people that have jobs that require a high level of education or training. Okay? I think all of us as professional movers would recognise that those people who work with us are exactly that. They are extremely skilled at what they do. Not always. We want talent, that wonderful word talent. So what's talent? It's a person or a group of people who have a natural ability and an interest and a capacity for delivering that profession in a professional way. Okay? Sorry to labour the point, but these are the words that we talk about, but, we talk the talk, do we walk the walk as an industry? I don't think we always do. So what do we need to do? We're doing a lot of work in the background, and apologies if apologies are necessary, but when I'm having the conversations that I have, first and foremost, I'm there to represent the BAR and its members. But inevitably, when I'm talking about us, we're talking about the industry as a whole. And so one of the things that we're doing a lot of work on is getting government to recognise that we are a key sector, we are a key trade, we are that profession, and we need to have that recognition. So when you do any searches now through SIT code, we come up under logistics or we come up under warehousing, and that provides all kinds of issues and challenges, not least in terms of when you're trying to finance businesses, for example. So we're doing a lot of work in terms of lobbying and influencing, which is hopefully leading us closer towards getting that level of recognition. However, as I said at the moment, one of the key things that has to happen is this industry needs to start walking the walk. We kind of pay lip service to a lot of this stuff, and again, apologies for those here who are all investing in their people, but we don't always do that. We don't always treat our staff in the way that we suggest they should be treated, and they are our very, very, very best asset. So what can we do about that? Well, let's look at recruitment. If we look at the traditional model for the industry, and recognise, please, this is where I've grown up. This was my world. Low basic pay and long hours. So I started in '71 as a porter, and going into the '80s working for Abels, the milestone was always at least 60 hours a week. At least, because if you got beyond that, you could earn a decent living, you could earn a decent salary, but that was the recognised model. It was the same when I joined Harrow Green in '97. The basic pay was not unreasonably low, but it was relatively low because we wanted to encourage guys to want the overtime. We wanted them to do those hours, and it was really considered a job rather than a career. Now, there are some of us, and I've had a very good career out of this, but it's kind of by accident rather than design. So what we want to try and do is build some design into that process. And unfortunately, that historic model inevitably leads to a fairly high degree of churn and burn. So staff retention becomes a real challenge. That's the traditional model. So what do today's employees expect? What are they looking for? Well, there is a what's in it for me approach, and they're not being at all unreasonable, they're not being at all selfish when they're saying that. What they're saying is, I don't want to work 60 hours a week, I don't want to work 65 hours a week, I've got a family life, I've got a social life. That work-life balance needs to come into focus, and that's actually been emphasised many times over the course of the last 2 or 3 years through all the challenges we've had. And also, we want to have a pay structure that's commensurate with what you're telling us we are. We're professional tradespeople. I need to be recognised as such. So I don't want to do 60 hours a week, I want to do maybe 45 hours a week, and I want to be paid well enough for it. Now, that, in my world, isn't unreasonable. And if we're serious about our industry as a trade, then these are the things that we need to think about. And if we get that right, happy employees inevitably leads to having happy customers, right? So, and again, these are just really generic thoughts. Andy and Caroline will go into more details in terms of some of the strategies behind that. But so how do we attract and retain? Well, the first step is to recognise that retention starts with recruiting. It's not something you do when you've got people, it's something you do when you're looking for people. You want to find the right people to fit your business. And candidates who are going to stay the course, and this is a personal saying of mine, attitude over aptitude every day of the week. If you've got somebody with the right attitude, he or she can be moulded into whatever you want. You can have somebody with all the skill in the world, but if it's a, you can't make me do that, or I don't want to do that, it's not going to end well. So when you are engaging in your recruitment strategies, that stuff around ethos and behaviours is equally as important, if not more so, than the CV ability, as it were. Try and give proper consideration to that work-life balancing. So the world has shifted. Whether we like it or not, the world has shifted. And you know, the 60-hour week, 65-hour week is not where we want to be. So we need to think about shaping contracts of employment that recognise that our employees probably don't want to work more than 40, 45 hours a week. Now clearly that then potentially, likely, impacts on our operating model. So we've got to think about how we deliver moves. And is it reasonable with all the challenges of today that we continue to try to deliver moves in a one-day span? Some yes, some no. And I would suggest that you want to be perhaps slightly more flexible in terms of how you look at planning your moves so that you can account for these things in your project planning. Really importantly, provide ongoing CPD, continuous professional development, clear paths to career advancement, because that's what today's candidates are looking for. They're looking for something to come into today, something that will provide them with a salary, but they want to see advancement. And 57% of staff switch jobs because that doesn't exist. Because they go into a job and it just continues being that job. They can't see the way forward. So when we talk about investing in people, this is what we mean. It's about investing in their CPD, creating opportunities for him, her, to advance their careers where they can see progression. Be fair and considerate with remuneration packages and link them to performance. There is absolutely nothing wrong with performance-related pay. It's something, again, I passionately believe in. It's something I've worked with for many years with my own team. We have an integrated appraisal system that's integrally linked to reward. People behave and perform and achieve at different levels, so why shouldn't that be recognised when you're considering what the pay structure is? And if done properly, it's a very, very positive tool. Maintain a succession planning strategy. So your recruitment and retention thoughts and strategies should be continuous. So if you're taking an employee and a porter in today and you're training that porter up to be a driver, where's the next porter? Where's the next one? Where's the next one? So you've got that continuous inflow, and I appreciate all of that has to be governed by commercial situations, but having that succession strategy is really important. And I'd also just emphasise that, and again in my humble opinion, it's something I wholeheartedly agree with, it's far easier to train a removal man to be a driver than it is to train a driver to be a removal man. So if you're starting with that induction at an apprenticeship level, at a porter level, and you're growing that person into your business and providing those opportunities for career progression, he or she is far more likely to stay with you. Deliver on your promises. Do what it says on the tin. You know, it's so important. There is nothing more disheartening or creates more disillusionment than you saying, I am going to do something within a specific period of time and it doesn't happen. Deliver on your promises, because if you don't, somebody else will. Just a couple of quotes I found. So compensation is a factor, but it's not necessarily the deciding factor. Money is always important, the rate of pay is always important, but recognition, appreciation, gratitude, culture and investment, all key considerations for any individual in any job about whether he or she wants to stay there. And actually some of those things don't cost a penny. Just recognising a good job well done, saying thank you, engaging, encouraging, really important. And the way to approach performance management needs to change, so links between performance, recognition, engagement and retention are strong, and they're all essential to achieving successful business outcomes. So engage with your people, get them on that journey with you. Don't just tell them this is what it is, engage with them. So again, I'm a fan of the appraisal process. It's a 360-degree process that really encourages interaction and engagement at all levels. And continuous feedback. So make feedback a cornerstone of the culture of your business. Organisations that embrace a culture of feedback realise a significant improvement in employee retention. If you've got that 360-degree conversation and dialogue going on with your staff, they are far more likely to be engaged with you, they are far more likely to stay with you. And I know it's kind of wokeism these days, but diversity, equality and inclusion, again, are really important. One of the things that's really good to see is that this industry of ours, which has for so long been male dominated, is increasingly finding the barriers are pushed further and further back, and we've got more and more ladies coming into the business in positions of authority. That is always to be encouraged and recognised in my view. So that is just a very sort of high level generic introduction into what I think the key issues are and some of the things I think that are within our gift to do something about. So I'm done waffling, and Andy and Caroline will tell you more about what they think.
Oh, sorry. Good man. Thank you. Thank you, Ian. I just wanted to pick up on one thing that Ian said that I thought was really significant. He was talking about the young members of this industry. Now, over the last few years, I've had the privilege of being able to meet a lot of these people and spend time with them. There's the young movers, the BA young movers that meet once a year. Well, they have a conference once a year. They have a similar kind of group in the United States. There's a European young movers group. I've just done an interview for my magazine with the president of an organisation called LACMA Next, which is the group for the under 40s in South America. And there is one common element that runs through all of this, and that is that we have some remarkably talented people in this industry, young people coming up in this industry. This industry is in very safe hands. It doesn't rely on people of my age group or even the one following that. There's some very clever, very intelligent, very committed people coming up in there. The question is, how do you get your hands on? How do you get them to come and work for you? And that's really what we're talking about now. And just to give you a perspective from a recruiter's point of view, could you welcome up to the stage the CEO of Red Recruit, Caroline Seear.
Hi everyone. A lot of what Ian has said I was going to say, so thanks Ian, and I'll see you later. Okay, so yeah, there is actually quite a lot of crossover. So what I was really going to start on was in fact hiring trends in 2022. So we've had the lowest unemployment since 1974. So the pool of candidates or potential employees has shrunk. We've gone through Brexit. We've got a far smaller gene pool that we can actually hire from. We've had headlines, I don't know if people have seen them over the year. There's far more vacancies than ever. I think that some of the job boards were quoting in the region of over 40% more vacancies than they'd ever seen before. Oh. So I've mucked up the laptop, whoever has control of the... I've mucked up the screen. Right, we have a technical hinge. So there is a big demand. So this year, for vacancies for the removals industry, we've had a lot of demand for all sorts of jobs at all levels. In particular, a lot of our clients have been looking for, recently in the last 3-4 months, porters. It's something that we didn't have a lot of call for ourselves because we do a lot of operational managers and salespeople. However, it's shown that there is actually an acute shortage right throughout the whole structure of the removals industry. So, yeah. So that is where the hiring trends have been. The last couple of weeks, to be fair, it has been quite quiet. So, as we know, we've had the Liz Truss effect on the economy, and things did have slowed down. So hopefully things will get come along a bit faster with the new government regime that we've got going on. However, at the moment, everybody's waiting with bated breath, and that's the candidates as well as the clients. So, identifying and engaging the right new recruits. Well, what I'd like to say is the very first thing is when you're looking to hire people, look at your own company, look who is working at your own company. Is there somebody in there that can actually do that job? So quite often, because they're seen as, oh, I see that person every day, they couldn't possibly do that job, which is it's quite untrue. A lot of times we go into companies and we'll identify that there'll be people within that company that can actually step up to that new position, and then you can go and hire a lower skilled person to then train up, and hopefully it will be the person that you've actually hired, that you've actually stepped up, will actually train the person that you're taking on. So if you, the good thing about that is actually it does show within your company that you're progressing people, which is one of the biggest reasons why people leave. And Ian did say it was 57%. I've got it down at 60%, but we can argue that later. Yeah. So so that you might have the right person right under your nose. So before you start looking outside for new recruits, it's really understanding what your competitors are doing. What are they actually offering? At the moment, salaries are going up. Without doubt, they're going up, and they're going up. So it isn't all about salary. It is a headliner, but it isn't all about salary. It could be in regards to social events. It's also how the company is perceived, the reviews that they have, their reputation they have. So it's important to really ask yourselves, why should somebody leave their current company to come and join yours? Which sounds slightly negative, but it's important for you to actually sell the reasons of why somebody should come and work for your company. If it is career progression within a company, do you do that? Is it the free benefits that the company give? Because there is an awful lot that people want. They want to be part of a team, they want to be part of a company, they want to be part of making something grow or good or give a fantastic service. So have a look at that. And that's all free. There isn't money involved in that. After that, it's really to have a clear direction throughout the hiring process. Look at what skill sets that you actually want. So what is somebody doing on a daily basis? What are their tasks? What are the skills that are required? And then you can broaden your selection and actually look at transferable skills. So at this time, I think it's really important because there are less and less people. There's a lot of difficulties now recruiting within the industry to fill that box. So I'm not saying get a round peg to put through a square hole. What I'm saying is possibly look at the transferable skills and look outside of the removals industry. And you may have to train a bit more, spend a bit more time, but really if you're hiring for attitude, which is something that you had on your talk as well, hiring for attitude with fantastic transferable skills, I don't think that you'll go wrong on that. And you can always train somebody on new skill sets, but you cannot train them, or it's nearly impossible to change somebody's attitude. So, regarding preparing a hiring roadmap is really important. So before you start, because if you haven't, it's like going to Tesco's without a shopping list. You'll end up with all sorts, and it doesn't really work very well in a business to actually do that. So once you've decided to hire somebody, if you prepare that roadmap, what outcomes that you want and what you want them to actually be doing, that's really makes life a lot easier. Also at that point, decide who's actually going to manage them on a day-to-day basis. We have had quite a lot of failed hires in the past years, over the years, where, especially in the shipping, not so much in the removals industry, where people have been hired and then they've phoned us and said, nobody's looking after us. We're just put on a desk and we're left to do things, and we're not told how, and we've got nobody to go to, we've got no mentor, we've got nobody to ask, and we're just left there, and I've decided to leave. And by the time they've made that, they've picked the phone up to us, it's too late for it to actually change it. So understanding what potential employers want is really important. As Ian again, he covered this, they want a work-life balance. The COVID, what we've been through over these last few years has really shown us now how the work-life balance is so important. A lot of people are asking to do work from home. It's not working at all on the shipping industry. They're very, very reluctant for work from home. On the removals industry, there's a bit of movement. You would get a lot more staff, a lot of talented staff, if you had more work from home, without a doubt, and trusted people on it. They want career progression. They want to be part of a team. They don't want to be doing 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and that is happening, and that is something that we're hearing quite a lot. And that's not just drivers and crew, that is actually move coordinators, relocation consultants, and the pressure has been piled on. They either want to go in-house and work for a client, or they want to leave the industry at all. People want to be appreciated, and they want to be known, or in a company that is actually known for giving quality service. So the question would be, I'd say to you, is what are you offering a new recruit? Quite often, when we have conversations with clients, it's difficult to say to the client, just by the way, there's a lot of competition out there. There's there's companies that really want the same person or the same type of person. So, what are you offering? And sometimes it's taken a little aback, but if you were being offered now a job at a new company, why would you want to go to that company? And ask yourself why you would. And it's about marketing. I've got to say, it's about marketing your company and having those core values, which are all there because you're removal people and you all love your jobs and you give a jolly good service. So it's all there, but get it down in writing, and tell the person that's in front of you that you're interviewing that that they're like going to a really good company. Things like social company activities, the things that you do about that, I expect you all do that. Being appreciated, training and staff development, progressing existing staff. Think about flexible working patterns, days off, and not just to being a number. So I'll finish where I started, and that is really, you may have stars in your company. So first of all, always look inside your company, see if there's somebody who wants to apply for that job. They might not have every skill that you're looking for, but they maybe need a bit of training. They're fantastic to actually be ambassadors for you and a new recruit that's less skilled. And when you have found somebody, the market is moving very, very quickly, and I can't say this enough. We will have somebody interviewing in the morning, and they've gone to another interview in the afternoon with another company, not through us, and they'll phone up and they say, we've accepted the job with the other company. Now, that has happened numerous times over the summer. Because there's so much demand and so little supply, we've been faced with this a lot. And trying to bring the candidate around and say, look, the interview you had in the morning with our client, they can offer you X, Y, Z, they can do this, this and this. If they've already accepted another position, it's very difficult. And to be honest, when you're actually hiring people, it's like asking somebody out for a date, basically. if you leave it too long, they'll accept somebody else's offer. So that's it. And thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you, Caroline. Let's sit over there with Ian. Can I move that table out a bit? It looks a bit tight there. That's it. Good, thank you, Caroline. Both Ian and Caroline both mentioned this 60% figure, 57, 60%. Majority of people leave their employment because they're unhappy with the development or the development opportunities, and part of that is of course about training. And so the next little section here we've got is about exactly that. So please welcome up the Managing Director of Andrew Pearson Training, no other than Mr. Andrew Pearson.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, following from Ian, I'm obviously the new boy in the room. So, I've been around removals 36 years. I've only been around training about 25. I've been asked to... Why did that go on by itself? So, I've been asked to chat to you today, obviously about training. And I thought what I would do is actually talk to you about... Why is that going by itself? I'll talk to you about how I see things from my perspective, both as a trainer, but also as a mover. It keeps moving on. I'm not doing that. Sorry. It's automatically rolling forward. Thank you. Right, we'll try again. So, since we were here last, we've seen a very buoyant housing market. I'm sure you'll all agree. Some of us have been enjoying move levels on a par with stamp duty holiday times. But I wonder what's in store for next year. Who knows? Personally, I'm quietly confident, but what are we dealing with at the moment? So we have the cost of living crisis. We have high energy bills, increased mortgage rates. This is definitely going to hit the household moving market. We buy fuel every day, and although I've noticed that it's come down recently, I'm led to believe that as we get into the new year, they're going to be putting another 10% of duty or so onto the fuel. We all buy packing materials. The price for those is going through the roof at the moment. And pretty much the rising costs of everything. Yet despite this, one of my local competitors last week was doing a move 1,700 cubic feet, and he was charging the client 800 quid. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. So how I see things from a mover's point of view is I want to give my company the best fighting chance, not only to maximise every opportunity in the busy periods, but also to manage the lean times that could be ahead also. So we're constantly investing the time and the money in staff training, as I believe the rewards are tenfold. The way I see it is this: if we don't have the volume of moves in the quiet times, then we need to be more profitable on each move. We don't want to be dropping our prices. Efficiency is the key, so while delivering a service to our customers that constantly exceeds their expectations and achieving much higher prices than our competitors, one of the key things that I sell every day on a pre-move survey as a mover is the fact that all of our staff are fully trained. Busy periods are great, but also can lead to an increased claims ratio if we're not careful, as everybody gets pushed to the limit. So what I gathered last week is some stats from Basil Fry. So this is something to think about, and by all means have a chat with Basil Fry or any of the insurers that are here, as customer trends are changing, as money gets tight for everybody, okay? Something to think about. So in 2020, Basil Fry processed 3,443 claims. Last year, they processed 5,260. And so far this year in 22, 3,944. So if you're not careful, the increased level of work that we're doing becomes a lot less profitable, not to mention the stress and the aggro, unless we've got in place the proper structure, the training and the experience. A wise removal man once told me, "Wouldn't our job be easy without the following?" Who can guess what I'm about to say? Trucks, staff, customers. Okay, well, I can't stop your trucks breaking down, but what I can help with is your staff training, which ultimately will lead to increased customer satisfaction. All joking aside, as a mover, our staff are our greatest asset, and we need to look after them. So it's important to invest in them and look after them, because if we don't, somebody else will. I'm sure everybody in the room will be aware of the benefits of training, so I've just put a few up on the slide here for you. More versatile crews, reducing claims. I like this next one because the more efficient our staff are, the less wages I need to pay out. Increasing the profit margins, hopefully then getting more recommendations. Certainly better teamwork. You might come on a training course and see new methods. I like to introduce quick and easy methods to all delegates on training. Share new ideas. If you're investing in people, it's going to help with the staff morale. And as Caroline mentioned, retaining the staff is very important, which will ultimately reduce staff turnover and many, many more. All of these are a win-win in my book. So, we all feel more comfortable when we know what we're doing, don't we? So there's three very important letters to always think about. C, P, D, as Ian mentioned. Continued personal development. This is important and should be built into any business plan. You will see the benefits immediately. Just ask any of my regular customers. So, what I'd like to share with you now, some recent observations from a training course that I ran recently. So just 2 weeks ago, I was doing something simple like a domestic packing course. It was for 8 delegates. Let me explain the scenario. So, because of the protesters on the M25, I had 6 people sitting on the chairs waiting for the other 2 to arrive. We knew they were going to be about an hour late. So I thought, we need to get started. We're going to have to do something. So I wouldn't normally do this on a training session, but I thought what we'll do while we're waiting for the others, let's just see how they're packing at the moment. Let's just see what their capabilities are. So I asked them to pack a box each, okay? Something quite simple, something that we do every day. Now, these weren't new delegates in the room. These weren't new employees, yeah? The person that had been there the shortest had been doing the job for 6 months. The others had been doing the job around 2 years. So they weren't exactly new people, okay? So, do we actually know how our road crew are packing? Well, we don't if we're not out there checking, okay? So, what I thought I'd do today is I've actually brought one of those boxes along with me, okay? So, I'm just going to bring the box around to the front here. I need a volunteer. This is the actual box that was packed. Just come and have a look at it. I'm going to put the picture on the screen as well, but feel free, open it, dig in, tell me your thoughts. Open it, yeah. Okay, so we've got, what's that in the box? It's a stem glass. Okay. So it's got minimal paper around it. a little bit of padding. But what they'd actually used as padding is they'd screwed up brand new packing paper to put in the bottom of the box. And not to mention the box is only half full. Yeah? So this is wrong on so many different levels. Yeah, sit down, sit down. Thank you. Because if things are packed on their sides, they're very vulnerable. Let's take this cup. If it's packed on its side, I could easily crush that. Yeah, upside down. Same with the glass. So it's really important that things are packed the right and wrong way. So they thought that was quite acceptable as a stem glass. This is what I would do as a stem glass. A little bit different. So, we obviously introduced some training and yeah, you can just leave it there, that's fine. And we put some structure behind it and we've given them a new method, okay, which they were more than happy with when they went away. For those of you that were here last year, you see that in my presentation last year, I showed a short video, and I'm just going to talk over this while it's playing. So we packed something that was very fragile. We packed it in a special way that we knew it could take a reasonable impact. We took it outside, somebody threw it up in the air out in the car park, and it came crashing down to the ground, okay? So we then took it back indoors, and this fella opened it up just so we can look at the results. You obviously can't pack everything this way because it would take us too long, it would cost us too much money, but when you've got something that's extremely fragile, it needs to be packed in the right way. And this is all about taking the vibration out of it and putting the correct material around it and everything else. So we like to have a bit of fun on a training course as well, if it helps prove a point. So they're just going to be unpacking that now, they won't be too much longer. And I've actually brought the item along with me today as well. There we go. So a quite fragile vase. And this was it. Yeah, don't drop it, don't drop it. Okay, so something I wanted to do today, just to have a little bit of fun, just before we summarise and finish. Coming back to the stem glassware. I've brought some stem glasses with me. I wonder how strong they are. What do you reckon? Will it take my weight? Yeah. Shows how strong they are. How brave are we feeling? Double stack. Just a bit of fun. So, in summary, we really need to invest in our staff. Also invest in yourself. Invest in your company. You're all in control of your future. There's a lot more to training than just getting a certificate at the end, okay? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. So we do have 10 minutes for questions if anybody would like to ask a question. Don't leave it all to me. Come on, ask a question and join in. Who's going to be first? Who's going to be first? No? Come on. It's a tough audience, this lot, isn't it? No, okay. All right then, let me start you off. Let me start you off. I know the BAR has talked about this, but I don't know how far you've got. And I wonder what, Andy, you think about it, and Caroline, if you think it would make any difference. Some kind of accreditation scheme for operational workers, so that they actually have a hierarchy, and the customers can see that they have a hierarchy. They can see that this person is a foreman. They can see that this person is a trainee. Would that help? Has there been any movement in actually making any progress on that? Ian, what's the score? So I know you were talking about it at the last BAR conference, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely, and we are indeed making some progress across a number of different disciplines. I support everything that Andy was talking about in terms of training your staff, but there's something I'd add to it, and that's relative to some of what Steve is talking about here, is that, again, this thing about behaviours, it's not just about having the craft skills, it's about how we're behaving in front of the customer, how we're communicating with the customer. And we're actually running an inaugural 5-day residential course in February of next year, which is aimed specifically at your senior grade, so whether it's the senior driver or the foreman or whatever, with the emphasis on exactly those things, because the fact of them being senior in senior roles suggests that they're already pretty good at actually doing the craft skills. So we want that week to focus on managing behaviours, managing resource, managing customer expectation, and all of that kind of stuff. And so again, as you're saying, Steve, increasing that awareness and that perception in the eyes of the consumer that this is more than just picking up a box. And also investing in people, because that's key, that they see the value and the recognition in terms of the job that they fulfil.
And Caroline, would that make a difference to when you're trying to recruit people? If they have that structure to it, do you think it would help you?
Personally, I think that having a structure where people step up and are able to develop their careers would be fantastic. Yeah. Because it's something, when we're looking for candidates for our clients, we are like, we will say about the client, we'll say, quite often we've been working with them for years, so we've been working with them for years. They're a lovely company, they offer training, they've got an apprentice scheme where you can work your way up. Here are some examples of a senior manager, such as Ian. You started as a driver and he worked his way up, and so you can actually put that out on the table and say that is the reality of actually going to that company, and that is one of their core beliefs, and we can recommend them for you to go there.
Does anybody here run that kind of system where you have a hierarchy with your on-road staff? Sir?
We do to a certain extent, but the problem we have in the industry maybe is most companies, especially within the BAR, are small companies, small businesses, so there's a limited amount of progression you can make.
Yes.
You can only go so far.
And the smaller the company, the more difficult that progression is, isn't it?
We have so many managers. I don't know how we overcome that, or what we're offering is to the people that progress.
Sorry, and I think that's a really good point, Michael. But and again, with the greatest of respect, do we need to necessarily revisit every year another course on packing a box? Because once they're into that process, and it's stuff they're doing every day, particularly if you're quality checking the service delivery, you can be reasonably comfortable that your staff attain a degree of proficiency at that kind of stuff. So progression and development can take all kinds of different routes. For example, from my own experience, when I joined Abel's in '84, and that was a company that was and still is, committed to training programs, and I was already pretty well experienced in how to pack a truck, how to load a box, and so on. And they said to me, "Well, we want to invest in you, but we don't think we need to tell you again how to pack a box. So we're going to send you off on a presentation skills course." And I went away as a driver, met people from all different walks of life who, were in completely different roles to me, but it completely changed my perception as to how I communicate not only with my clients but with my colleagues, with my manager. So career development doesn't need to stop because you're in a small business. There are other things that you could explore, in my view.
Okay.
It's how we do that as a small business without people then, like yourself, you left Gables and went on to Harrow Green. How do we do that and retain?
Not for 15 years, I think.
Andy, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago now, as an arm of the BAR, we had the TMI and we had the accreditation scheme, and that worked very, very well. And it always gave people the next step, if you like. You've got your next step of progression, and it worked really well. And I would love to see something along those lines come back.
Okay. Can I just jump in if you want to ask a question? Jump in, so I'll nag these people all day long if you don't. One other thing that I'm really interested in, and you all touched on it in a way, is when you've got staff, doesn't matter whether it's on-road staff or whatever staff it is, it's all very well to tell them what you want them to do. It's a much more difficult thing to make them want to do it for themselves. And in fact, I was with a company only on Friday last week, and this was exactly what they really sort of focused on. And one of the drivers came in while I was there, and we'd just been talking about this very thing, and I said to him, why do you go out of your way to do the right thing? And he said, well, because I want to, because I know it's the right thing to do for the company. And I didn't want to sort of press him on it because I didn't want to embarrass the chap, but I really didn't get how the management had made him want to do it. What do you think about that, Andy? How do you make people want to do the things that you want them to do rather than just simply tell them?
Yeah, okay. It's not a skill that everybody has.
No.
Everybody's different. Every employee is different. What I do at my own moving company is we identify the people that want to progress themselves, and we put them in like a supervisory role. And then you've got a key person that's running each move. We obviously give them incentives to be a supervisor. They're in charge of the move. They have big responsibility. But it's like Caroline was saying earlier, it's hard to teach people this wanting to do stuff. So it's just a case of identifying who you've got, picking the people that you think might be capable of doing it, and then giving them the help and the encouragement along the way.
Caroline, do you think there's an element of this that is about sort of other than business stuff? I mean, for example, if you've got a company employing 10 people or something, do you think it helps to sort of try and create that family feel, so that you're doing things together that are nothing to do with work? Is that a way of creating that loyalty and making people stay with you?
Yes, I think so. I really do. But it's maybe families a bit too woke. It's been overused, I think.
Yeah.
Caring about other people, I think, is really important. When somebody's ill, maybe sending them off to a specialist or something and paying for the specialist. It's like, it's actually about caring, especially a smaller company, caring for each individual person. Obviously, you've got to be a little bit careful because some people will take advantage of that. So it is a fine line to tread. But then again, when you're hiring, if you hire for attitude and you haven't got people that are of that way inclined, and you've got leaders within the business and right throughout the business that are very, they want to succeed, they want the company to succeed, by putting in that going out in the evenings maybe, or doing other activities, actually bonds everybody. So it's a massive part of actually making you're part of a tribe. So it's all part of wanting to stay within the business.
Yeah. Ian, there's one other thing I wanted to ask as well. We've all been caught up in this working from home thing over the last couple of years, and I mean, I think there's a bit of a sort of a levelling up again, you know, as people drift back to work, drift back to the office. Certainly Elon Musk thinks there is. That's another story. Yeah, of course the operational staff have never had that opportunity. They could never do that. And I know that in some companies that's caused resentment. How do you, if we have now settled down to this situation where the office staff are allowed to come in 3 days a week and the rest of the time they stay at home and walk the dog, or at least that's the perception, how do you get the operational staff to understand that and to not feel excluded?
I think that's a really interesting question, Steve. And I go back to a point you were making just a few minutes ago. You know, if you tell somebody something and all you do is tell them, then they might take it in, they might not take it in, they might agree, they might not agree. If you're involving somebody in the decision-making process and they get to the point where they understand, then they're more likely to own it, they're more likely to engage with it. And I think that's true of this working from home. The picture you paint is exactly right. And I know some of our member business have adopted very successfully hybrid working models. Others have said, well, actually, because our road crews have to be present and operational, then it's right and proper that our office team should be. Many have adopted a slightly less formal structure around accepting that hybrid working is part of the normal working life, but not making it a contractual consideration, but something that's discretionary. That seems to work quite well. I think the reality is with road crews, and I say this with the greatest respect, you know, I think they also recognise they can't do their job from home. It's just impossible. They're going to be in somebody else's home doing their work. That's the fact of life. But behind all of this is yes, attitude is really important. And sorry, Steve, just kind of going off on a bit of a tangent. One thing that certainly in our business that COVID taught us, and we'd never thought or accepted that home working was necessary in any way, shape or form. In fact, our contracts of employment specifically excluded it. But COVID forced that upon us, which made us rethink every aspect of our business continuity planning, and actually demonstrated that we don't all have to be in the office. And what it served to reinforce is that I can have absolute trust and confidence in all of my team to carry out their jobs perfectly well and perfectly efficiently. So that was an added benefit, and it's meant that we as a business have been able to relax some of our previous views on contracts. But it is a tricky one when your operational delivery teams have to be there. So therefore your operational management teams almost inevitably have to be there to oversee that process. And so it becomes slightly more difficult. But there are hybrid models that are adapted and I think are working pretty well. But the key to it all is communication and involvement, in my opinion.
Okay. Anything to add? No? Yes? No? Okay. One final thing, I just want to throw this out to all three of you, just to see if anybody wants to comment, really. And that is, I want to talk about the environment, because I would hope with all generations, but certainly with the younger generation, the environment and the way in which companies treat it, and the way that they look at their responsibilities towards it is really important when they join a company. They want to know that that company is doing the right thing. And I just wonder whether any of you have any experience on that, and what it is that, if that's the case, what people are asking for. Have you seen that, Caroline? Have people asked that?
In reality, I'd say not a lot.
So
I'd be absolutely honest.
They've been more bothered about getting the job and getting the money rather than whether the company is doing the right thing.
Well, they don't forget, on the company's websites they have a lot of green credentials, and so it is becoming highlighted more and more. and especially with airlines. So I expect the removals industry, it will be going through to that. However, it hasn't been a massive thing. I could ask Clarissa if you had that. She's more hands-on with candidates.
Anybody in the room come across that? Have any of your staff come to you and said, so what are we doing about this global warming thing? Has anybody asked? Nobody's asked. I predict it will. Yeah. Andy?
Okay, so just from personal experience again, on appointments last week as a mover, 3 separate customers asked me this exact question, and do we recycle all the materials? Do we use them again? So it is really important. So many years ago, every customer kind of expected brand new boxes. They like to think that the house was packed in new boxes, but now they're interested in what we're going to do for the environment.
Just a couple of very quick points on that. The issue of the environment, sustainability and all that is the new health and safety stuff. So back in the early 90s, when we'd be submitting tenders, the tender question might be, do you have a health and safety policy? And we'd say yes, and nobody ever asked for it, nobody ever looked at it. And we've been kind of paying lip service in the same way to our environmental credentials. But as the younger generation get more and more integrated into our businesses and take on those positions of authority within our businesses, so we are going to be challenged more, and quite rightly. We took a young lady on in our office quite recently, initially on maternity leave. That's become a permanent contract, and she definitely challenges us. Why are you doing that? Can't we cut back on that? And it's great. You know, stuff that we don't necessarily think about as being waste, she sees it as waste and is constantly challenging us.
The BAR Young Movers Conference that was held a couple of months ago was held in a packaging factory. That's how important they thought it was. They wanted to actually be there and see what was happening. So I predict that you will get more of those questions in future. Thank you to our panel. We've run out of time. Thank you very much indeed. Round of applause for them. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for turning up today. And if you hadn't been able to get to the other sessions we've had today, don't worry, I'm going to be reporting them in the Mover. I've got Steve Pearson is here, who's the editor of Removals and Storage. He's going to be doing likewise. So read the magazines, you'll find out all the things that you've missed. And thank you for coming along. And if you're coming along tomorrow, then we've got a whole new set of topics to talk about tomorrow. So see you then. Thank you.